Last time you joined us, we had just left our home port, Fareham, in the UK, and we were making our way around the south of the UK and had the amazing experience of going up the Thames and through the City of London. We left the tidal part of the Thames and we made our way through the first lock at Teddington, and we were now on the River Thames proper. It was an amazing experience and the boat got a really good run. Now we had 2.5 months and 32 locks as we make our way up to Oxford. The river doesn't allow us to go any further than Oxford, unfortunately, but it gives us plenty of practice to prepare for the French locks next year, and also to keep an eye out for a suitable marina, as we're going to have to winterise the boat at the end of the UK summer. Little do we know that this was not going to actually be the plan, and that a disaster waited for us around the first or perhaps that second large river bend, and our trip may end before we even got started.
Hi, I'm Carol, and this is Patrick. And this is De Person, our home, and over the years we've taken from this to this, so that we can do this. Welcome, especially if you're new here.
We've done all that intro stuff, and that was last year, 2024, and our plan was Oxford and back down the Thames, and then we were going to winterise while we go to South Africa for the UK winter and South Africa summer, and then come back, travel down the Thames over that summer, this 25, and get to Dover, and then cross
Thames and Medway, Dover, cross to Calais, and then up through Belgium, Holland.
Belgium, Holland. And that was going to be kind of like at the end of May, maybe 2025.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now, June 2025. And
we missed the boat.
One of those things has been achieved, possibly two. Now, the reasons that these plans haven't happened, or the reasons we haven't actually achieved all of that, is pretty huge. But let's start with the successes. What is the one success, Patrick?
Oh, I'm battling with this one.
We went to
you went to South Africa.
We winterized the boat, found somewhere to winterize the boat, and we went to South Africa for the summer of 24 into 25.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been to Oxford. But now we're back in Reading, where we have been since 24. So let's start there. So the first part of the trip was lovely. Coming up to Teddington,
Teddington up to Reading was pretty good.
Yeah,
coming through London was pretty special. But I think when we get to Reading,
okay, well,
it's not so good.
Let's just wind back. So Teddington, up through Thames Motor Yacht Club, we on the banks outside Walton on Thames was lovely. We had friends coming and staying with us on the boat, which we'd always planned to have friends come and join us, spend a night with us, push it to two weekends. We went up through Henley. We stayed in Windsor for 3 nights and did some work. Learned how to use a laundromat for the first time.
Caught a bus first time in I don't know how many years.
That was difficult for you.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of fun, but then as we approached Reading, that's when disaster or challenge number 1 happened. So Patty, you explain what happened, because it's all a bit of a blur to me.
So we got to Reading. We wanted to stop at Reading to go to one of the stores here. So we knew where the store was, quite close to the river. So we came alongside a marina here called Reading Marine Services, who have been really good and
amazing. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, been really good to us, very kind, and solved some of our problems for us. And so we pulled up here. We were across the other side of the river. The chap said, "No, bring the boat along this side, so it's easier to get on and off, and we can keep it there for half an hour and then carry on our journeys." So the plan was just to stop for maybe an hour and then continue up to Oxford. Well, that hour has turned into a year almost.
It is. It is.
But anyway, the gearbox got stuck in forward gear. So we thought, is it? You start looking at the usual things, linkages and all of that sort of stuff. And eventually we got to the point where we said, no, gearbox is out, has to come out. And that's where Reading Marine Services got involved with us again.
But I suppose it's important to say that we had that gearbox.
We had the gearbox rebuilt. When we had the engine rebuilt, the gearbox was rebuilt.
And that was 2019.
2019, something.
And how many hours did it have on it?
Less than 100 hours. So that gearbox is virtually brand new.
Yeah, it was so confusing as why it had happened. And it was terrifying because it was stuck in gear and
it was stuck in forward.
And then the engine kept cutting out while we were trying to come up alongside.
Well, when we went into a stern, it would cut it because of being a hydraulic gearbox. The gearbox stalled itself effectively.
Okay.
So anyway, we had the gearbox. We had the back of the engine lifted, gearbox taken away to be rebuilt again, and the guy who rebuilt it, a chap up in Nottingham, he was saying actually everything's perfect. The plates and everything in the gearbox were perfectly brand new, nothing wrong with it. It was the wrong type of oil that was in the gearbox. So what we discovered is when the guy rebuilt it the first time, he put SAE 30 oil in it, and I questioned him about it, and he said, "No, that's the right oil to do. Don't worry with automatic transmission oil. This is much better. The box will last a lot longer." So it turns out that was wrong. Should have been
mineral oil?
No. That's what was in it. It should have been the hydraulic gearbox oil.
Yeah.
So that was gearbox put back together, new seals again and all that stuff. Put it in, we ran it on the ropes for a while.
And then England became England.
And then the rain started and
that was months.
Yeah, so that was end of September, beginning of October.
It was about the river went flood.
Yeah. So everything on the river went red boards, top to bottom.
Yeah. So what red boards means is that the river is running at such a rate. I'll see if I can find the. Have some water.
This is the best tool that we've ever picked up.
You should
picked
point
it
out
up at Hampton Court on the way up.
On the way up we
and
stopped
it has
at
been
Hampton.
the most useful tool I've ever had on the boat. Really successful.
And it doesn't
works extremely well. It does have a leak though.
And it is afternoon, so so what was I talking about? The red boards. So that's right. So red boards means that all the locks put up red boards, which is effectively no entry. There's no lock keepers, but also the river's under flood and it's running at such a high speed that it is actually quite dangerous. The river's quite narrow. If you were to turn in, that water's going to come alongside. There's debris in the water, and we did see, we saw stuff, didn't we? Chairs, loads of logs.
Logs, big trees coming down.
Trees.
But not only that, also a lot of the bollards and everything that when you're coming alongside are underwater, so you've got nothing to actually tie onto. So
and more importantly,
you're not insured.
The insurance is not going to pay if something goes wrong and the boards are up, the red boards are up. So we've got an app on our phones and on our devices that show you the river status, and we just literally watched it going from green to yellow to red, and it was pouring. And so although we had a gearbox in again,
Couldn't use it. Couldn't
all
go
we could do
anywhere.
was run on the ropes. And after a while, even those were underwater.
Yeah. So we did probably 10 hours, I would say, just running on the ropes, but both in a forward and the stern, just to make sure that it was all working, changing gears. So we ran it for a while, so that it was ready to go.
And we
that
hoped
Yeah.
that they would go at least a little green and some yellow or green, and could we risk just at least a little coming off. But we ran out of time. We had flight tickets booked. The guys here are amazing. They said, no, winterise are here. We put a full cover over the boat, and we left her on the marine in the water, and they craned her out and kept her on the hard.
They also did the winterising.
Oh, they winterised it.
And all the water tanks and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, they did a really good job. So yeah, I think that was the end of that year.
That was 24. We went over there for New Year 25 in South Africa. So we were a bit distracted by a lot of wine farms and sunshine, but we knew that we would come back, and the plan was then to de-winterize the boat. We now had a working gearbox. The boat was ready for us, and then we just needed to jump on board, but we had
we had a few things that we had to sort out before we went to France.
Yeah.
We had to get our visas sorted out. So what we wanted to do was apply for a long stay visa, so that we could stay there for 6 months, not just the 3 months on the Schengen visa. And we needed to get the boat registered in our name. Although we've owned the boat for ages, it wasn't actually registered in our name. And I had to do a 70 course.
Yeah.
I think that was about it. Really.
Yeah, there's just the standard paperwork that you need before you can even think about crossing over, particularly if you want to stay. I don't know if it's similar in a day trip, but certainly to stay. So that's when the next catastrophe or next obstacle happened. Was we started putting together the paperwork, and there's some great videos on how to do it, because to get a long stay visa in France is no easy job, but to get a long stay visa to stay in France and not in fixed accommodation was another challenge. We're on a boat that's moving, and the red tape and bureaucracy says, where's your address, where's your Airbnb, where's your hotel, and we're moving. So we were a little bit cautious about whether we were even going to get a long stay visa. And then we started gathering the paperwork. And as Patrick said, one of the first things that came along was, while he did the 70 course, I started investigating, let's register the boat. We've got some paper trail. We've got bank transactions that we bought when we bought her. We've got lots of old bits of paperwork from previous owners. We've got the blue book.
Yeah.
Blue registry book.
Part 1 registration.
Part 1. But when we put in the application to register her in our names, they said, where's the bill of sale? And Patrick and I looked at ourselves and went, well, we didn't really have a bill of sale.
We did have one where the form was filled out.
Yeah, the form was filled out.
I'm not sure that the previous owner posted. He said, don't worry, leave it with me, I'll send it off and get it posted. So big mistake. Make sure you take a photocopy and post it yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a problem with us.
So we tried to track him down, because we sent in everything we had, and
we gave them proof of payment.
Proof of everything, and they came back and they said, we think this could be a problem. We need to know that the boat, there's actually a bill of sale. So I started tracking down the seller. I found his name, and I knew his name, but I found his address on a lot of paperwork. Got in my car, went with a friend down to the property, thinking I'll just go, he'll be there, I'll just get him to sign it. And unfortunately, he passed away during COVID.
So Inspector Clouseau over here. Close, but no cigar.
No cigar, no signed piece of paper. Fortunately, when I got back and just said to Patrick, I don't know what we're going to do now, because we're not going to have a bill of sale. We're not going to get this boat registered in our name. And I got an email from the registry office, to say actually ship's registry, your bank transactions, the paperwork, everything you've sent us is a significant paper trail, and it all adds up. And here's your certificate. I mean, I nearly cried. So that was a tick. Ish.
It was a tick-ish because the certificate we got back, we actually discovered was wrong.
Oh, they filled it out
because
incorrectly.
they filled out the owner's details as the name of the boat. So we had to go back to them and get that
new one.
But anyway,
then everything went off to the French consulate. That is if I get a chance in another video, I might just, or maybe put some links in here. If you're going to try and do a long stay visa for France on a boat, you need to follow. I followed another YouTube video, and it was the Cruising Association. So shout out to them. They gave us a lot of advice, and I followed it to the letter. And we got an appointment, and I think it was quite far in the future we got the appointment. And
well, yeah, because we chose a later date because we knew we had to get the registration sorted out.
That's right, it was going to delay us. And I think at that point we were deciding, well, France is again not going to happen this year, 25, because we don't know if we're even going to get the visas, and we don't know about the registration. Then that came through, and we went and went off and had the appointment at the French consulate, and they said that it looks all right and they're going to send everything off, and we will hear in 2 weeks. So we thought, okay, well, let's see what happens. Let's carry on up and down the Thames. Let's enjoy the boat. Let's enjoy the UK summer, because it might be different this year and no red boards. And let's see what happens. So we did go up to Oxford in that little mini heat wave we had, and it was lovely, wasn't it?
As expected.
As expected. We stayed a few nights in a little town called Abingdon. We went...
Highly recommended. Stop at Abingdon.
So lovely. And the lock keepers are so lovely. And we went all the way up to Oxford, spent some time exploring Oxford. We've got bicycles. Oh, that was one thing that also happened.
Oh, our
bicycles were stolen. Was it before we went?
Before we went to
Before we went to Africa, our bicycles were stolen. So fortunately they were insured. Forgot about that. So much trauma. So we went up to Oxford. Family joined us there, and we just made our way very slowly down. We stayed over in Pangbourne on the bank there, made our way down back to Reading, because we'd said we would stop over and just say goodbye and pick up some stuff that they were storing for us. And
so it was the trip was always up the Thames to Oxford, turn around Oxford, down the Thames again, Medway, and then across to France. So we got to Oxford, we turned around, we came back to Reading,
picked up some friends,
and we were on our way down the river.
First lock.
We were on our way down the river to Medway to continue our journey now to France. We got to the first lock, and disaster number 2.
I think this was catastrophe number 4. So much smoke. So Patrick was on the locks, opening up the lock. Myself and my friend were on the boat. She turned around and she said, "Carol, is that normal?" I don't even know how to describe how much smoke was coming out the back.
If you think about World War II, when they were putting smoke screens up for battleships, we could have hid I don't know, 6 or 7 battleships in our smoke.
People walking on the towpath disappeared
in the smoke. It was just ridiculous.
So we called the guys from Reading Marine Services, and they sent down a towboat, and they towed us back to the same mooring where we'd been for the gearbox.
So here we are,
and
Groundhog Day, still in Reading, deja vu.
Never even got to drink our goodbye champagne.
No.
Immediately when it happened, Patrick and his friend that was with us, and even the guys at the marina, when they saw the video I took, said, "Oh, it's what was it? Injectors. It sounds like injectors. She's making that same noise."
You could clearly hear she was missing on one cylinder, so we thought maybe it was injectors. or the injector pump, effectively high pressure pump, was maybe out of kilter.
So they checked. That was on the Sunday.
Yeah, the Monday they came through. They ran the engine. When you're running the engine, if you crack the injectors off the top of the injectors to basically release the pressure, so you're not firing diesel into the cylinder. If the cylinder's working, you can hear the engine note change, and you can say that injector's working or not. What it transpired was two of the cylinders, number 2 and number 5. It made no difference, i.e. there was a problem with both cylinders. And at that point it's like, well, now we don't know what the problem is. It could be the injector pump, it could be, and you could be unlucky and have both injectors gone, or it could be head gasket. So we decided at that point.
Well, the engine, how old is the engine?
54 years, I think.
54-year-old.
Old Perkins 635.
Yeah.
But it had been rebuilt,
also in 2019.
2019. So when we redid the boat, we rebuilt the engine and gearbox. So we decided that was it.
But there's an oil leak.
Yeah, of course there was an oil leak. I forget about the oil leak.
How can you forget about that oil leak?
So we've had an oil leak ever since that engine went back in, and I think we've had a problem with the sump, always in this boat. So I think the decision was a relatively easy decision. I had lost confidence in the engine at this point. So I think the easy decision to make: take the engine out and put a new engine in. I had an engine in mind. I spoke to the guys at Reading Marine Services. They said they'd put a quote in. Got the quote. Had to have a deep think about it again because it's an expensive exercise. But we decided at the end of the day, right thing to do, put a new engine in.
Yeah. We'd had enough warnings that it was not going to happen.
So the engine was ordered. It's now sitting in the workshop, ready to be fitted. There's a bit of work they're doing in the engine bay to
they
get
took
the
the engine
right.
out, and what did you find?
I'm getting there.
Oh.
So the new engine's here. It's a Nani 115, little 4-engine turbocharged engine, slightly higher rating horsepower, and more importantly, it fits within the diameters of the engine bay. So that was ordered and ready to go. Now we also decided what we'll do is we'll put a thrust bearing in between the engine and the prop, and that means your engine mountings can be a little bit softer, less vibration, all that good stuff. So we're now in the process of doing that. When we took the engine out, the old engine, now the old engine weighs 670 something, almost 680 kilos with the gearbox. When that came out, first of all, the boat waterline rose by 2 inches almost in the bow, and about an inch in the aft. When we took the engine out, we discovered actually there were some other issues with it anyway. One was the engine was touching the bottom of the hull. The sump of the engine was touching the hull again. So that would have been a problem down the line. We also discovered that
it was vibrating the whole time.
Yeah.
All the paint was missing.
Yeah. We also discovered that the exhaust elbow, where the engine, the raw water cools the exhaust effectively and then goes into the exhaust and out, that had corroded and literally only had hours to go before that popped and went. And once that's gone, I think it's almost impossible to get those parts anymore. I don't think they make them unless you've got a newer part, and that means taking the whole head off again and redoing the whole lot. So that was an issue. And on the header tank, which is like a radiator on a car, that was also just starting to leak as well. Same sort of issue, corrosion around the end caps of the headache tank. So there were 3 other issues plus the major issue. So
it was just
time. The universe was telling us.
Something was telling us.
Time to put a new engine in.
Yeah.
So that's the decision we made. That's where we are.
And the post bought the visas.
And the post.
We bought our visas arrived.
So we've got the visas to go to France, but we don't have an engine.
We don't have an engine, and the oars are too small. We've got an outboard. Okay, we're going to wait for the engine to come in. So I'll post another video with the engine going in and hopefully us leaving, and answer any of your questions that you're interested in, and I'll put some links and some other bits in towards the end of this video. But that's it. When did we first say we wanted to go? When was the original date? 2021.
2020 was our very first. When we first got the boat, we thought, okay, 2020 is probably realistic. We bought the boat in 2016.
16, yeah.
So we thought, okay, 4 years to get the boat up and running. We did. Well, we partied a little bit on the boat.
Some of us partied harder than others.
So we used the boat for the first sort of 2 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then we had the issue on the engine dropping its oil.
Yeah. So 2020
that was 2018, I think. So November 2018 we took her out, and then we did all the work on the boat.
So we thought 2020 we'll go to France. With hindsight, the only word I can think of is delusional.
Yeah, too much partying is what I would say.
Anyway, we are going to do it. We just need to
find a new boat?
No. The engine's going to go in and we're going to do it. But that's where we are. And it'll be fine. This is the delusional talking again, but we're going to do it.